Hey guys, I built this concrete and slate wall with an electric fireplace as the focal point of my basement. The formed architectural concrete wall is made with concrete tiles. These tiles are about 2 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 1/8 inch thick. The black slates are made with 5/4 maple hardwood. I stained them to black and applied Rubio Monocoat pure as the finish. The wall-mounted electric fireplace is 72 inches wide. I made a black wood cover to hide the 4 side faces of the fireplace.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay.
Now I will show you the building process in 6 steps. The first step is to install the fireplace. This fireplace can be recessed into a wood frame or mounted directly to an existing wall. I chose the latter option. Before that, I pulled the Romex from the adjacent receptacle for hardwire connection to the fireplace and added a switch in between as the main power control of the fireplace. The wall-mounted installation is quite straightforward. I just screwed a metal bracket to the wall and then hung the fireplace onto this bracket. I used 4 screws to mount the bracket to studs and another 2 screws to drywall anchors. The existing wall of my basement is very uneven, so I have to use quite a lot of shims. This was what it looked like after the fireplace was mounted. From the shadow of the horizontal strings, you can tell how uneven the wall was. Because of the uneven wall, I have to make a second layer of drywall to create a flat surface before installing the concrete tiles. The second step is to build a flat wall. I bought some 1x3 and 1x2 pine boards and used these boards to compensate the unevenness of the existing wall. If I needed a thinner board, I used my planer to reduce the thickness of the board. If I needed a thicker board, I glued 1/4 inch plywood to the board. For minor adjustments, I set my BOSCH dual mode sander to turbo mode and sanded down the board to reduce the thickness. During the installation, I also used some shims as support and minor adjustment of the thickness. This was what it looked like after all the pine board was screwed to the existing studs. From this angle, you can see the different thicknesses of these pine boards.
Move on each and every day. The past is where it stays. Way back a year ago, I've changed for the better this time. I thought.
Then I just installed the drywall boards to these pine boards with drywall screws. To cut the drywall boards, I used score and snap method for long straight cuts, as well as the multi-tool for small cuts.
I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright. And for the first time in a long time, I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays. Way back a year ago.
Next step is to paint the slate wall area to black. Before that, I used joint compound to patch all the screws and the joints. After the compound was dry, I applied 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of paint. I used 1.5 inch brush to paint the corners and use a 4-inch roller for larger areas.
I'm not falling. I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going live. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
The paint I used is Sherwin-Williams Emerald Latex paint in matte sheen. The color is trichome black. The fourth step is to install the concrete tiles. The tiles were glued to drywall with construction adhesive. I used Loctite PL Premium Max as recommended by the concrete tile sales. These tiles are made with real cement. Each tile is unique with a slightly different color and texture. The tile is not heavy and is quite easy to cut. I used 3 methods to cut them. A circular saw with a diamond blade can make a very clean cut. A jigsaw with a diamond blade can be used to make small cuts, and a snap and score method can be used to make long straight cuts. The edge of snap and score cut is not as clean as the circular saw one, but all the edges can be sanded to make it look better. I first glued the bottom row of the concrete tiles with the support of some scrap pieces of wood and poker cards to make sure the tiles align with each other horizontally. Then I installed the rest of the tiles the next day. On the third day, I applied grout to the joints between tiles. I used a plastic putty knife to apply the grout and used a sponge and microfiber cloth to clean up the extra grout.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
This is the grout I used, which is also recommended by the concrete tile manufacturer. I also caulked the joints between the concrete tiles and the adjacent ceiling and walls with the same color silicone sealant.
Be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
As the fireplace was mounted directly to the wall, I needed to cover the 4 side faces of this fireplace. I cut 4 pieces of 5/4 maple boards and glued them together with just butt joints. To reduce the weight, I used a dado blade on my table saw to cut several slots at the back side of these maple boards. To reinforce the butt joints, I used 3 screws for each joint and covered the screws with shop-made plugs.
I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, And for the first time in a long time, I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where...
After sanding to 120 grit, I stain the cover to black with Rubio Precolor Easy. This stain is quite easy to use, but sharp edges may not be stained well, so need to ease or round over the sharp edges. After the stain dried overnight, I applied 1 coat of Rubio Monocoat Pure as the finish. To install this cover, I glued 4 small pieces of wood to the top face of the fireplace and applied some construction adhesive to the concrete tiles behind the cover. Then I just placed the cover onto the fireplace. After construction adhesive dried, I applied black caulk to cover the joint between concrete tiles and the black fireplace cover.
Days, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear death.
The last step is to make the slate wall. The slates were cut from 5/4 maple boards. They were 1/16 inches wide and 5/8 inches thick. After all the slates were cut, I used my planer to clean up the saw marks. Then I used a miter saw to cut them to length. The slates were stained and finished similar to the fireplace cover.
I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going live. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Before the installation, I used my CNC to cut 3 spacing jigs to make sure the slates can be installed with even space in between. For installation, I applied construction adhesive to the back of the slates, used a spacing jig to place them to the right position, and then used 23 gauge pin nails to hold them.
I'll be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays. Way back a year ago.
Okay, that's how I made this concrete and slate wall with an electric fireplace. I really like the look of the concrete tiles. They look very real, just like formed architectural concrete. The black slate wall is subtle but provides interesting contrast to the concrete tiles. I hope you enjoy this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please thumb up and subscribe.